Morning. First item, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item is the minutes of this committee's meeting held Monday, January 24th. Recommendations to approve those minutes.
So moved. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
The first report of staff concerns a development variance permit to vary the minimum lot width and setbacks at 3434, 3438, and 3444 Roxton Avenue. We have a delegation from Mr. Ryan Lucy from Morningstar Homes to present, and the staff recommendations to approve the signing and sealing of the permit.
Okay, is there any staff presentation before or just? Okay, so there's no changes, no anything that has come forward, no surprises?
That's correct.
Thank you. Come forward, please. Always like to learn about surprises before you get here. Name and address for the record, please.
Brian Lucy, Development Manager, Morningstar Homes, 946 Brunette Avenue, Coquitlam.
If you'd just like to point to me, I can progress you along.
Oh, great, thanks. Thanks for your time. Our proposed subdivision contains two development variances. The first is a reduction in lot width, and the second is a reduction in the side yard setback for the detached garages as well as the carriage homes. Perfect, thanks. I'll start with lot width. We're requesting to reduce the lot width for the interior lots from 10 meters to an average of 9.67. The carriage home lots, shaded in red, will have an average width of 9.84 meters. It's important to note that the proposal is a request to reduce the frontage and not the total area of the lot. All lots in the subdivision will meet or exceed the minimum sizes as stated in the R7 zoning bylaw. In fact, the average size of the lots in this subdivision will be 4,000 square feet.
Wow.
Thanks. Second variance is for a reduction to the side yard setbacks for the carriage homes as well as the detached garages. The proposed setback is 30 centimeters for the detached garages, as depicted in the photo on the slide, and 60 centimeters for the carriage homes, rather than 90 centimeters as stated in the zoning bylaw. This setback is the result of consultation between ourselves, city staff, a parking consultant, and a building code consultant. The proposed setbacks to ensure that we can adhere to the parking requirements is outlined in the city's zoning bylaw. We've worked with the parking consultant to design the off-street parking in a manner that will fit 3 standard size SUVs. We had a parking consultant give us a report, and a copy of the report was submitted to staff for their review. We also worked with a building code consultant to review the proposed setbacks and ensure the structures will be built according to the building code, which was positive. So I'd like to finish just by saying the two variances we propose do not increase the density of the site, do not result in a reduction of lot area, and do not reduce the parking standards or number of parking spaces provided. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any questions? Being none? All in favor?
Actually, I don't think it was
The
moved.
motion has
I'll
not
move
been
it.
moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next item concerns the authorization for a development variance permit, again for lot width and detached garage setback reduction for a subdivision at 1404 and 1408 Coast Meridian Road. Once again, Mr. Ryan Lucy is here as a delegation, and the staff recommendations to approve the signing and sealing of the DVP.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All approved? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Been at too many meetings this morning. Next item, please.
I'm not sure whether Mr. Lucy had any comments. He was requested to be a delegation.
I think
Nope, he has received what he came for. Item 4 is the authorization for issuance of a development variance permit, and this is for 6 Burbidge Street, Maquabeak Park area. Recommendations to approve the signing and sealing of the permit.
I'll move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, I'd like staff to do a little bit of a presentation on this, if you would. This is really an odd one. Is everybody familiar with Maquabeak Park? Yeah.
Yep. Hi, Council. My name is Michael Dahl, Development Planner with the city.
Have you got a picture that you can put up showing the location and
Yep.
things like that?
We haven't had an exact accurate drawing yet because there's kind of been a rush through Metro Vancouver to get this through as part of the project. They're starting to do construction there. But they're proposing to put an observation deck that would be accessed right from the street at this little red outlined area south of the 7 Burbidge industrial complex.
And that would be far south, I guess, of the boat ramp, correct? Show me where the boat ramp is on that little. That's
Boat
right.
ramp.
Okay, I know where you are now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So it's before we
Okay, Councillor Reamer.
Thank you. I know there's been concern expressed by one business in the area about the parking and the traffic that they see may wind up in their business parking lot. Do we have any idea about the numbers of people that may be utilizing this? I know that's kind of hard in that it's not existing right at the moment, but...
No, we have no numbers
Okay.
provided. The assumption would be that the normal park users would just use the observation deck to look out onto the Fraser River, but we don't know if we anticipate more people because of the observation deck.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I have a bit of concern about, the parking challenges down there, but I think most of it's from the boat traffic anyway, and given that the ramp's there, I don't know that this other little amenity will make much difference around parking in terms of destination. But my question actually is about universal accessibility, given that I'm the chair of that committee, and would really want to make sure that lookout is universally accessible. So there's some really interesting projects, and I don't know what Metro has in mind for it.
Through our Parks Department, they also recommended universal accessibility. That's why they're doing a rear lot line setback variances to bring it right on grade, so everyone can access it without having slopes, because the area slopes down.
That's great. Thank you.
And my only parking concern there is I used to, before all the construction started, go down there a lot to walk you-know-who. And there was a lot of business parking in the park parking lot. And so, it was exactly the opposite of what you're worried about now. And I often wondered, and I meant to ask staff this, and I don't know if I ever did a year or so ago, but are they ever going to fence off the access between the businesses there at the back? There's no fence between the businesses and the parking. So people do pull in their boats, and people pull in with business cars, and if there's no parking at the business, they park in the park and walk around. So that's something I think we should look into, but obviously not at this point, but I'd appreciate it. Okay, so we've had a mover. Oh, Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. Well, I understand this goes inside the 30-meter line of setback from the river. How close to the river is it?
Right on it.
It'll be within 5-6 meters ultimately. We don't know the exact location other than that it'll be right against the rear property line and how far it extends out.
Will we get to see it at a future date when they know exactly what they want to build? How close the foundations, for example, are going to be to the riverbank?
We could
Potential impacts on the estuary?
we could bring it forward, but normally if these DVP is granted, it would just go straight to a building permit. So.
Okay, I see we have a couple of environmental considerations. The Ministry of Environment Fraser River Estuary Management Program, Vancouver Fraser Port Authority. The Port Authority, I don't suppose, was particularly interested in the environment. But I wonder whether we've had any input on this from any streamkeeper organization, DFO, anyone like that. I'm concerned with being so close to the riverbank.
Madam Chair, perhaps I can try to address that. I'm not up on the particulars of this particular application, but generally for works along the Fraser River, and the Pitt River for that matter, FREMP, there's a sort of collaboration of agencies, DFO, Ministry of Environment, Ports, and so these sorts of proposals need to go through that process to be reviewed from all those different perspectives: navigation, not a hazard of navigation, geotechnical, and also environmental impacts. But we can just confirm on that. My sense would be that if it's come forward to this point for a building permit to the city of Coquitlam, it's cleared all those hurdles, but we will confirm that. The reason it's here today as a DVP is because under our zoning bylaw, structures built within a certain distance of the Fraser River and the Pitt River need to meet certain height and setback requirements, and obviously you can't do that if you have a viewing platform out into the river. So it's been designed to address those concerns, but we will confirm on the environmental aspects.
Thank you.
No more questions? We had it moved, seconded. A mover?
I had moved it.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Item 5 is again, authorizations for a DVP, and this is to vary rear yard building setbacks to facilitate a subdivision at 456 Walker Street. Recommendations to approve the DVP.
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
Second. Any questions? For Nicholson?
Looking at the map, and then I may not be reading it accurately, it looks to me as though effectively we have a driveway through the SPIA area. Is that right? And
Yes.
how does that fit with protection of the SPIA area?
Through the chair, that's correct, that there would be a joint access driveway for both of the lots that would go across the SPIA area. That's been reviewed by the qualified environmental professional who's responsible for establishing the setbacks around that watercourse through the site, and it's been reviewed by our environmental services group in terms of meeting whatever requirements are necessary to address the crossing over that watercourse.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Item 6 is a DP authorization for multi-unit service commercial addition at 1090 Lougheed Highway. This is the former Barnes Wheaton site. Recommendations to approve the signing and sealing of this DP.
So moved.
Second.
Councillor Robinson?
I have a question, and I'm thinking about some previous conversations that I've heard around this committee table that has to do with, I'll call it the wow factor. And the Councillor Reid has alluded to numerous times. And here we have an interesting building. It's sort of a bit of a gateway building, even though it's coming off of the gateway project.
Excuse me, Councillor. Could we get the picture put up front here, please?
And I'm wanting to know, because it talks, in the report talks about the large walls and using pillars and all this kind of architectural stuff. But I'm reading it and it's more blah, 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 building, blah, 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 blah. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity here for, green wall, large mural, something that is not more of the same. Because we've got lots of those kinds of buildings and they start to all look the same. And no offense to our friends in Richmond, but I'm starting to get a little bit of that feel. And I'm just wondering if there's any way to encourage a bit more texture and richness and interest. It'll blend in with everything else, especially when I think about the view from Mackin Park, which is going under redevelopment, and you're going to hit this wall of building, and I'm thinking this is an opportunity for like a green wall that will visually, make it look different. And just want to see if staff can help with moving this kind of thing along.
Madam Chair, interesting comments, and yes, sometimes a certain sameness starts looking out there. I guess what's been successful is what people follow. But I guess the important thing to note with this is it's the reuse of an existing building, which in itself is kind of a neat concept. So you have an existing structure there which you're adding on to. So that kind of limits your flexibility in terms of some of the siting and building size and shape and that. And I think that because they've done quite a decent job in adding on to an existing facility. It does have a sort of a straightforward commercial highway look. We were also pleased that with this redevelopment taking place at the location, it's very true, it is a landmark, an important corner with the improvements coming to the Lougheed Highway, the King Edward overpass. It's great to see the private sector seeing those opportunities to enhance these sites. In terms of adding greenness to the design, what they've done is, again, this is with a development permit, so they come in with a development permit design that's consistent with our guidelines. So I guess maybe it's in our guidelines we need to look to, and also in the future with applicants encouraging those elements. We know we had one recently, for example, just down the way and across on the north side of actually the same side of the Lougheed Highway with the Port Mann monitoring facility.
Right.
They were designing to a design directive from the province to incorporate those features. So again, it's a little bit different between public and private sector, but we can certainly take that away and encourage that. And next time we're looking at DP guidelines, we can see what we can put forward.
That would be great. Or even if they can, the landscaping also, it's sort of like it's standard, it's same old, and it would be really nice to see some creativity. I'm told that the development community has lots of creativity, and I'd really like to see it. You're all out there. I see you. Thank you.
Are we talking palm trees and hibiscus and
I can go for palm trees, a beach front.
Me too.
Oh, tequila store.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a similarity in the two headings, design review and zoning bylaw. They both say that the development meets many of, in one case, the commercial development guidelines, in the other case, provisions of the zoning. Under zoning bylaw, though, we go on to say where it doesn't meet. Under design reviews, I'm told that we meet many of the guidelines, and then I'm told which ones we meet. But I'm much more interested in which ones we don't meet and what the impact of meeting those might be.
Mr. McIntyre. Or
Designate.
Got me. Good question. Would have to take that away, and I don't have an immediate answer as to what design guidelines. But remember, design guidelines tend to be a bit of a palette of choices to give some range of. It doesn't prescribe one solution all the time. So there's a number of options where, obviously, you want to allow for some creativity in design. So it may meet some of those, but it may not meet others. So that's the best response I can give you right now.
And perhaps some of the ones that aren't met are the ones that Councillor Robinson was looking to achieve. So I'm left a little uncertain as to whether I'd rather defer this until I have a complete answer, or what my level of comfort is in going forward and finding out later.
Madam Chair, if we could ask the file manager, Michael Dhaliwal, just to speak a little further on this.
go ahead.
Through the chair, the design guidelines that they might have not met were the rear elevation that faces the home outfitters to the south. The wall, as you can see on the second diagram there on the left, is kind of blank with just the trees showing. The design guidelines do say to try to avoid blank walls, and that was probably the one key one that they might have not addressed to the full extent of the DP guidelines. Where staff was coming from is it does back onto home outfitters, so the chance of the public actually seeing this wall is very slim because the home outfitters back wall is also blank, and it's kind of away from any visual sight lines of pedestrians or traffic. Also, the applicants are here. Council wanted to, or committee wanted to direct any questions to the applicant as well.
Okay, thank you.
Your questions were mainly for staff.
That's right.
Okay. All right, so I guess you've heard the word is the wow factor, so we expect to see something absolutely extraordinary surrounding these buildings. So we have a mover, seconder, all in favor, opposed, carried. Next item.
Yes, item 7 is a proposed rezoning from RS1 to C1 to accommodate a future local commercial development at 1649 Como Lake. Staff recommendations to give first reading to zoning amendment bylaw 4155 and that this bylaw and its related application be referred to public hearing.
Okay, thank you. I had asked if we could have the C1 zones put up on the screen, if you don't mind.
It's coming up.
Okay, the reason this morning when I had sort of a pre-briefing of this, we all know which piece of property this is, right across from Parkland School. For years it's been where we bought our pansies every year. And,
Thorns.
and
Campaign office. Diane Thorn's campaign office.
yes, and an old campaign office and all those things. It's a wonderful little site and much loved in our city. The one thing is that if we read, they want it rezoned now. And what I am concerned about is because it is right in the middle of a residential zone. The questions that I had asked is the height. Well, under this particular use, it cannot be higher than what is allowed in the RS1 zone. So it could never be higher than a house that's permitted behind it. But the other thing, because when we go through this all the time, when we change the zone and then we have to go through a development permit, it's sort of two different processes. But I wanted everyone to know what is allowed in this zone. So just to know what we might get if we do not get what is put in the package. And Erica Tiffany and I had this conversation this morning about I guess it's the local government legislation, is it? That someone can come in and show us this, which can we have this put up? I keep having to ask, but can maybe one member of staff go up there so we can... a little easier for the audience to know what we're speaking about too when we do it this way. So this is the drawing, which seems like a huge, huge thing to put on that building. But when we do developments like this, it comes in with a drawing. But after the zoning gets done, they do not necessarily have to build that. They can build anything else that's allowed under the C1, which I hate to ask you again, can you put the C1 back up now? Thank you. So these are all the things that would be allowed if we rezone it right now to any of these things. So, I mean, there's a lot of things there. There's beverage, like a recycling depot. I don't know if that's a very good spot for it. Laundromats. All of those uses are okay. But not including a drive-in business. So it's before you. And did staff have any comments? No? Okay. Councillor Robinson and then Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. Well, I'm actually not crazy about this at all, for different reasons. It still has to do with the traffic issue. And I see that staff have looked to transportation services, saying that they don't foresee any traffic concerns that would require a median to restrict left turns. And I'm thinking, I've done that drive down Como Lake at rush hour, and if there's somebody sitting there in that left lane waiting to turn left, it's going to create problems. And if there's a little grocery store and on the way home I have to pick up a whatever bit of milk or whatever, I just see that as a real problem. And and then let's say we do decide later to put in a median, how do they access it when you're heading east? So I just don't think it's the right place for this kind of commercial use. Not until we have a better transportation plan for that little corner.
Okay. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. Well, I note that we're asked to send this to public hearing, and I've looked forward to that because I've had representations when there was nothing on the floor, nothing on the table to talk about this item. I've had residents in the area talk to me about that lot, and they didn't like what it was being used for previously, and I suspect they're not going to like what's proposed now. Well, my further comment is I appreciate Councillor Reid's comments about what could be built and the limitations to the size and so forth. But I'm quite bothered by the drawing that was put up in the text of our report. Staff note that the angle and artistic expression of the attached concept drawing is not truly reflective of the scale and massing permitted under the C1 local commercial zone. Then what's the point in putting it forward? It adds nothing except some level of confusion. And from the proponent's point of view, assuming staff told them that it wasn't reflect the scale and massing permitted. To my mind, they've reduced their prospects of approval by offering a document that isn't particularly helpful. I will put it forward because it'll go to public hearing. But obviously there are a lot of questions to answer before it gets past first reading.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Reamer?
Thank you. I, too, am going to support this going to first reading. I'm not as concerned about the traffic issue, and the reason for that is that I suspect it will be well utilized by the neighbors right behind it, and so I suspect that, that there may be more walk-in traffic than drive-in traffic. But certainly that's something that can be discussed, and we can accept feedback up until we go through that public hearing process. So I will support going to public hearing on it. Thank you.
Councillor Lynch.
And I'm also planning on supporting this going to public hearing. And we always have the same problem when we try to rezone something before we've decided exactly what might go on there. But I think that we have to take some heart that when the redevelopment does come forward, staff will be bringing back the development permit to ensure the appropriate form and character. So at some point we're going to have some more input on this. And I think that right now it's the use that it is at is not really all that compatible with the neighborhood right now anyway. We need to decide what we're going to do with this piece of property and if it's going to be developed and what's going to be there. And one of the ways to do that is the appropriate process is to go to the community and see if they have any interest in it being something like this and seeing what type of reaction we have before we go forward. So that's why I'm supporting it to go forward to the public hearing.
Okay, and the reason I brought up all the uses is because of this very picture. This isn't helping anyone to understand what's going to go on the site. So would it be appropriate, Mr. McIntyre, that we just move the recommendations as they stand, or would it be, and then would it be appropriate for you to ask the applicant to bring something that's more in context with what they're looking for to public hearing, because this isn't going to do them any favors at all?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a good question. We can advance this on with the Standing Committee supports to Council next week, and so there'll be further discussion then. The applicant is here, I believe, with his designer as well, so I trust they're making note of the comments. And then it's a matter for them to, and perhaps between now and next week's council meeting, we can get a response whether they'd be able to come back with perhaps a little more sensitive concept design for the site prior to the public hearing, because the public hearing is always a couple of weeks after the first reading consideration. So if Standing Committee is willing to move it on to council, we'll have that conversation this week, and we'll give you a verbal report next Monday.
Okay, that's good. That works for us. Did we have a mover and a second?
I'll move it.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
I'm opposed.
Oh, Councillor Robinson is opposed. Item 8.
Yes. Trying to read and do technology at the same time. Item 8 is the Austin Heights Neighbourhood Plan. This is proposed amendments to the OCP, and it's Bylaw 4196. There's a 4-part recommendation. I won't go through it all, but I will just note that it's to give first reading to the OCP Plan Amendment Bylaw 4196, and that this bylaw be referred to public hearing. Some other stuff in between.
Thank you. Do I have
I'll move
a
it.
mover?
I'll move it.
Seconder?
Second.
Okay. Go ahead, Nadia.
Madam Chair, if I could, if I just offer a few introductory remarks and then turn it over to Nadia. Just very, very briefly, we're very pleased today to come back with the proposed Austin Heights neighborhood plan for the Standing Committee's consideration, hopefully on to council and a public hearing here. The Standing Committee may recall we had a workshop back in September trying to work through some of the elements of that were outstanding at that time, and staff took that away and came back with a new and improved, a refined neighborhood plan that's been taken out to an open house just recently, and I spent a number of hours there, and I was really quite blown away with the number of people who were there, and Nadia will get into the details of that, plus give you just a very high-level overview of what the neighborhood plan is calling for, but we are quite pleased to be bringing this forward today.
Okay, thank you.
The final draft of the Austin Heights neighborhood plan is presented to the Land Use Committee on November 29th and then to Council on December 6th, where we received direction to present the plan at a final public open house. Throughout the process, the development of the Austin Heights Neighbourhood Plan was supported by a comprehensive public consultation program, and we did hold a number of well-attended public open houses and workshops. As Jim mentioned, most recently we held the final public open house on January 26th at the Legion, and over 400 community members attended the open house, and as Jim mentioned, it was very well attended, and we were very heartened to see that level of engagement in the Austin Heights community. Over 100 people took time to fill out the comment sheets, and what we saw in the comment sheets definitely reflected the verbal comments that staff heard as well, is that there was very strong support. 3 out of 4 people supported the plan and supported the land uses in the plan. The plan calls for a higher density mixed-use commercial core where the existing commercial area exists right now. It calls for housing choices within a 5 to 10 minute walk of the commercial core, and retention of the medium density apartment area with allowing opportunities, select redevelopment opportunities in the medium density apartment area. So overall, very strong support, a very positive process, and we're here today to submit the plan in bylaw form with the recommendation that the plan be forwarded to Council for first reading and then for referral to public hearing. I also wanted to take a moment to thank some members in the audience. We have PAG, the Project Advisory Group member, Phil Johnson, in the audience with his wife, Lorna Johnson. We have the Executive Director of the BIA, Erin Davidson, over here, and they're just representative of some of the community members that have continued to stay engaged in this process from the beginning to the end. So.
Thank you. And I guess as the chair of the Land Use Committee, all of us really appreciate all your input and your work. I know how long it takes to go through these little by little, and somehow it's disheartening when you work so hard and people say, oh, I don't like that. But I guess we've persevered for, almost a year and a half, 2 years on going through this process. And to all of you, and especially to the BIA, thank you. Thank you so very much. So if there are no questions, Councillor Robinson.
I have one. This is actually what's come out of the reading. First of all, I think staff have done an outstanding job in terms of community engagement. I've been wowed by the number of people that you've gotten to come out. And this is more a community planning overall question, because that's where the bulk of our rental stock is in this sort of neighborhood. And I'm not sure if the chair would just indulge me for a moment about the status of our affordable housing strategy, and if that might be something that might be on the books to take a look at, just overall our rental stock. Is that something that we're going to be seeing in the next little while?
Through the chair, yes. That's on the books. We've been more focused of late on the various shelter projects, but I know in talking with both Kathy Van Port and Verna, they remind me that that's also on their work program, so we will be shifting our attention to that, and we should have something later this year for committee and council.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, are we all done? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Nadia. That's great.
Item 9 is the Coquitlam Tourism Blueprint. This is an item that was referred to this meeting from a previous meeting of this committee. Staff recommendation is to work with parties to advance the 6 steps outlined in the report, to provide periodic updates to council, and that the report be referred to information with the Chamber to discuss tourism.
Okay, is there going to be a presentation or no? We've had this before us once before, so.
I'll move it.
Move?
Move. I'll second. I have a question.
And Councillor Reamer.
I'm just wondering if the 1 year, a periodic update in 1 year's time, I'd sort of like to see maybe 6-month update. I think 1 year is too long. Would everybody be okay?
I certainly agree to that.
Completely.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, and in view of the discussions we've had with the Chamber, and we're going to get together and work together and try and move forward, I'm feeling quite positive about this. So, we've had a mover, a seconder, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Next item, item 10, concerns an MOU and a potential visit to Coquitlam. The recommendation is that Council endorse the attached MOU and host the Foshan Chancheng delegation when they visit Coquitlam next month.
I'll move it.
Second.
Questions? Councillor Robinson?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to articulate it. I guess what I'll just share is some interesting reading that I've done over my holidays. A book by Richard Florida talks about the creative class and the how cities are going to be reinventing themselves economically. And one of the areas that he talked about, interestingly enough, was education as a focus for developing new economies. And so I think this is sort of a step in that direction in terms of how do we support our local school district, our own school district, to be stronger. And I think that it benefits our residents. So I'm going to support it because I think that's part of the conversation, and I'd like to, I guess, widen that conversation even more about how does this support economic development in our community.
Okay, I have a couple of comments too on the financial implications, and there are no financial implications apparently with this.
Minor.
Excuse me?
It says minor. Just
minor costs, but the first sentence says there are no financial implications. So we go from no and minor. So somewhere in there, there's an escape clause. This is, as I gather from Mr. McIntyre, this is sort of us, the city, supporting the school board, which have already been venturing into this area for the last 15 or 20 years or something. And it's just to show that there is a link between the city council, the mayor and council, and the school board. And that's very important in doing business in Foshan, Chancheng, with the Foshan, Chancheng delegation. That's what they're looking for, is a link between the city hall and the school board. I will have problems if this starts to make it that we have to be traveling to China all the time. So in no way am I supporting multiple trips to deal with this issue. So now that I've had my 2 cents, I'll have a move. Oh, Councillor Nicholson?
Not just comment. I've had some conversation with the mayor about this. And it's a fact that if there is travel by the mayor, it'll be on the school board's expense, not the city's. The city may acquire some ancillary benefit through the mayor's travel, but it won't be at the city's cost.
Well, it's the same taxpayer, unfortunately. They pay both the school board's costs and ours, and everybody's on an austerity program these days. Did we have a mover and seconder? We did. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Item 11 is the minutes of the Maillardville Commercial and Cultural Revitalization Task Force meeting of January 13th. Motions to receive those minutes.
So moved.
second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item.
The item of business arising out of that committee's meeting concerns potential development incentives was the topic, but the recommendation from the committee is that council set aside funds to install new street signs in Maillardville that incorporate the Maillardville brand.
Okay. Does this have to go on to engineering, or can we deal with this here? The committee reports, the advisory committee, or task force in this case, reports through to the standing committee. We can certainly alert engineering to the fact that this will appear at council, and if any questions arise, they will be able to speak to it at that time. And they're aware of the issue. So, Councillor Robinson?
Well, one of the challenges is I don't know how much funds. I don't have any information, so I'd be willing to learn more about what it is they want, and I think that report should go to engineering. So is that what you need from us, is direction to?
I think we should just move this to engineering, personally. And
Chair wants to speak.
From the discussion at the committee, there was a program at one time to frankify the street signs in Maillardville, and they're asking for continuation of that. I think it's entirely appropriate. I don't think it needs to come to next council. I think if we direct this to engineering, to have them come back with a report that would include costs and a proposed timeline, that would be the appropriate thing to do.
So are you making that motion?
I am.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That was easy.
Did you?
Get you an easy button.
I've got an easy button. I'll bring it.
Item 12 is the minutes of the Multiculturalism Advisory Committee in their meeting of January 20th. The staff recommendations to receive the minutes receive the minutes only.
Okay.
Second.
Councillor Reamer.
Thank you. I note this was brought to the committee before, or to the Land Use Committee, pardon me, prior to the Multiculturalism Advisory Committee approving these minutes. There is an error on the minutes. It has to do with other business, the interfaith calendar, and so the committee meets this Thursday, and they are going to, the words on these minutes will be amended. So I'm not sure.
Can we just defer this to the next meeting?
It's simply a matter of receipt. We often bring minutes prior to, in fact, this committee's minutes go to council without their approval. So it's just for receipt, and as the chair of Multiculturalism just noted, they can approve them and revise them at their meeting later in the week.
Okay, perfect. So we'll have a move to receive. Second, all in favor, opposed, carried. We're done.
Thank you. That's the last formal item on this agenda.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I was just trying to, a number of developers have been coming to talk with different committee members or council members about some of their multifamily projects. And one of the things that I've been highlighting or flagging is where in their plans are they looking at kitchen waste? And given the direction that we're moving overall as a city, and we've identified multifamily kitchen waste as an issue to be dealt with as part of our waste management, zero waste challenges, and all that kind of stuff, I'd actually like to start seeing staff to start asking those questions so that the development community is looking at that, because to retrofit is always going to be a challenge. That's the direction we're going in. By the time they actually build these multifamily dwellings, we'll hopefully be in a different place. So I'd like to encourage them to start looking at that so that when they come to us, it's already in place.
So that's just direction?
That's just if we can direct staff to start asking development committee that question, that would be really helpful.
And while we're on that and the new developments that are coming forth, we've had a couple of conversations over the parking issues, because everyone is trying to get, more parking. And Mr. McIntyre and staff are going to be looking into that to see if we've got the appropriate ratios. And we'll be reporting probably back at the next Land Use Committee, just for your information.
I'm wondering if during that process of looking at the parking, we could also check with other municipalities that have buildings close to transit-oriented villages, as an example.
Yeah, Mr. McIntyre, go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, the transportation engineering staff have started that review, looking at our standards in comparison to the Roads and Transportation Association, the RTAC, that's the national standards, but also against other municipalities. We haven't yet got into discussions with them, but those meetings are set up. So I won't have anything immediate, or even at the next meeting, but we are having those discussions, and as material comes together, we'll certainly bring it to both this committee and to engineering.
And we had discussions, because the only transit spot that we have to do infill and sensitive is Coquitlam. And that's the one that's really important that we do it right, and because it's such a contained little site between Robinson, Como Lake, and Smith, and the Coquitlam Plaza. There's going to be a lot of towers, and it's going to be a site that we have to pay particular attention to. So that was basically the gist of the conversation, and we'll be going forward on that. Okay, is there anything else?
Move adjournment.
Second. All in favor, opposed, carried. Can I see?